Hello, hello! Welcome to Insureblocks Open Source episode 17. And I'm very happy to be joined once again by the lovely and gorgeous Mark Simpson with all his fancy lights.
Hi, everybody.
And with equally lovely Rory Unsworth with his kiss.
Hi, everyone.
You waited there a little bit.
Teasing.
Right. To kick things off, Mark, how about you tell us, what is it in the news that you found interesting this week?
So my interest is around the combination of blockchain and smart packaging. And it's looking, in this instance, to tackle a much heightened risk of counterfeit beauty products. So what we've seen during COVID-19 is a real spike in e-commerce. So lots of people at home, I know this living in a house with 3 women and the couriers turning up to 7 times a day, but there's been a real captive audience. And beauty has always been a target for counterfeiters. It's really interesting that there's an estimate that by 2024, online is going to account for almost 16% of the UK's health and beauty spend. And it's a massive e-commerce boom, but it's ripe for counterfeit. Believe it or not, in the UK, between 2017 and 18, there were more than 2.2 million fake body care items that were seized. It's the third most counterfeited item behind cigarettes and alcohol. So what we started to see is this week blockchain being used to track the whole provenance and ensure the transparency for the consumer. So a bit like last week with the coffee, you can use a QR code, that's great. But it's also coupled with now what they call one-of-a-kind packaging. So that's what they're trying to move towards. How can you make it impossible to replicate it? It's a bit like Everledger in terms of what they did with the diamonds and the wine and the luxury goods. So the kind of the tamper tags and the unique chips. But I'm really interested to see where will that extend.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. It's an interesting one.
When Mark mentioned beauty's always been a target for counterfeiters there, I seriously thought we were going to get into a cosmetic surgery on the blockchain there.
Well, maybe you could check that your surgeon has the necessary qualifications, so they can put their qualifications on the blockchain. So there's always an angle, I guess.
Thank God we didn't go there.
Indeed, indeed. Rory, what is it in the news that you found interesting this week?
Well, this week I'm being very diverse in my thinking, right? So I would like to celebrate someone's 90th birthday, and it's someone very special to the insurance industry, namely Warren Buffett. He is 90 this week, so I don't want to let this opportunity pass. I'm hard-pressed to choose a single anecdote that I like. There are so many, right? The Equitas story is one that I love, where he purchased a heap of reinsurance recoverables that the vendors didn't even know about for one symbolic £1. Nice touch. But I would rather focus on one of his recent observations about the future of money. So, and which is very relevant to insurance. He says, own equities rather than debt, because debt might soon cost you to own it. It might be a negative asset. And that, of course, of itself kind of explodes the insurance business model, doesn't it? Yeah. So he admits that he was wrong all his life on this point. One of the richest men in the world, and he says that his grasp on economics hasn't been sufficient. So it's not so much the observation, which I think is highly pertinent in any way to insurance. It's his ability to learn and adapt to the times, even at the age of 90, right? And he doesn't just learn and adapt to the times, he actually acts. So in the last few months, he's been quietly diversifying by buying shares in Japanese trading houses. And this week he announced it. So really acting on his learning and acting big. So I find it incredible. He's known to have made negative, and this is a bit of a separate anecdote, right? But it relates to his lifelong learning. He's been known to make negative statements about crypto in the past. He once called it rat poison squared, which I think has a great Shakespearean ring to it, doesn't it? Rat poison squared. and a crypto founder once paid $4 million to charity for a one-on-one with him to try and convince him that crypto was worth his while. And Buffett said, we separated with the same opinions as we met with. But anyway, who knows when he's 100, what he's going to feel about crypto then. Let's hope he's still with us, giving us insight. But if he ever gets into crypto, you can tell there's going to be some action there. So anyway, for the anecdote, and this is like my claim to fame. I once had the privilege of being the lead lawyer on a deal with his national indemnity team, which is the same team that arranged the Japanese deals. And in fact, that arranges all his big investments. And it was a fantastic experience, just a brilliant team to observe. So in fact, we ought to reach out to some guys from National Indemnity and try and get them on our community. I think that would be really good. So my like of the week is a lifelong learner, aged 90.
Good point. And I think, as you said, a key takeaway here, no matter how on top of your game you are, no matter how old you are, you got to keep learning. And yeah, it's going to be interesting with regards to the crypto space, how his view may evolve with time or not. Mark, tell us, what is it in the news that made you wonder?
So switching location, I'm going to the swamp. Why? I think it's really interesting, an article I read, and I'll again put it in the show notes, businesses cannot delay digital transformation any longer. Now, that's pretty well understood. And you could argue that COVID has definitely emphasized that. Yet we still seem to remain stuck in a number of cases, which is interesting. And it reminds me of one of my favorite business books called Strategy and the Fat Smoker by David Maister. It was back in 2008, but I'll put it in the show notes again. It's knowing what to do is one thing, but doing it is something else, is the one-line précis of this. Anyway, this is a piece of research from Global Data Centers, which is part of NTT. And it said more than half of digital transformation projects are currently delayed due to the hesitancy gap, which are like, they try to lay the blame of IT teams are costing businesses millions because they've laid the groundwork for digital projects but haven't executed them. But I think it's not just an IT piece. And whilst, again, organizations know they should move to digital, and we've seen a number of things quoted as being, well, we've seen a huge rise. Microsoft Teams saw 12 million users in 1 week. There's lots of, online developments looking at how do you time manage, working from home, how do you build remote relationships and tips for remote collaborations. But I still put those in the bucket of necessity rather than transformation. So what I'm wondering about is, if we already know what we need to be, so we need to be digital, what's stopping us from doing it? Now, we know there are lots of other pressures, costs, uncertainty, lots of firms plugging the holes in the businesses we've got at present because we aren't digital. And then you need additional resource to build the new shop. And we can often revert to our old behaviors, of the past, see how things pan out, be a follower, fear of making the wrong choice. But as usual, things seem to come back to people. So it's really got me wondering, what else is it that's holding people back? And I'd love to hear comments from the community on what they think is holding back digital transformation.
I would also want to make a special call to the community and to anyone listening to this video, really, is that I think all the C-suites and all the heads of business lines within the insurance sector should buddy themselves up with an entrepreneur. The whole idea about cost being an issue, is bullshit. Because if you're linking yourself up to an entrepreneur, they're going to think in creative ways that are going to reduce your costs. They're not going to add costs. They're going to say, why in the hell are you going to pay thousands of pounds for this license when you can use those free libraries of codes of this open source software that can do it for you for free? You just need to be a bit more creative. I'm very passionate about this. You need to blend those skill set. It is not an IT problem. It is a mindset problem. You got to remove the fear. You got to have this startup attitude. So C-suites, heads of business line, find a buddy entrepreneur, sit with them at least once every 2 weeks, explain to them your problems, and let them be creative. Anyway, that's my little rant done. Rory.
Good. No, I think it's really important. Great point. It's back to the diversity. It's back to Rory's point about, if Warren Buffett can show intellectual humility, then why can't we all?
Exactly. And at the same time, you think about a virtuous circle, right? The entrepreneurs get great industry knowledge. They're going to be able to create better products that's going to be relevant to the industry. It's a win-win for everybody. It's just, we've got to get away from our comfort zone. We can't learn if we stay stagnant in our comfort zone. You've got to go outside of it and get someone like an entrepreneur or someone from the industry to take you by the hand and share your knowledge between each other. Not that hard. Sorry. Rory.
Well, my like was about an elderly American gentleman, and my wonder is generated by a friend of mine who is a much younger Finnish lady, who is in fact a member of our community, Helena Hapio. Anyway, she has been thinking about AI directly relating to the world of law and contracting that I like to talk about, and in terms of her and my relationship with her, she's sort of a one-person platform who just brings people together and makes things happen. And the paper which she wrote with Dan Linner of Northwestern University, who's another one of these people who puts unlikely things together. If you think about it, he is Director of Law and Technology Initiatives at Northwestern. Think about that juxtaposition. Law and technology initiatives. Already there, you've got someone putting some interesting pieces together. Anyway, where am I going with this? Sorry. The paper. Yeah, the paper talks about the need to look at contract redesign initiatives in combination with initiatives to introduce AI, right? The two of them together, not one first and then the other. So I hope Helena and Dan will forgive me for summarizing their paper, but I think their point is that if you add the power of AI to existing processes and documents, I guess, so to build contracts, to review contracts, to negotiate contracts, but what you get out is the old-fashioned legal idiom, right? Long contracts, complicated, that the human reader is never going to struggle through, really, right? You've missed a trick. You've missed an opportunity to bring a generational change around law and contracting. So to have both the machine readable part, the AI piece, and the human readable contract. So here's my wonder of the week. What would stop sponsors, this is really a question to the community, I genuinely don't have the answer. What would stop sponsors from doing these two things at the same time? There may be something. Maybe it's harder to test outputs of the AI if they take a form in the output that no one is yet familiar with. Maybe it's that, if you do it in combination. I don't know. I'd be really interested to hear from our community members about that wonder of mine, and I'll include a link to the paper, which has been peer reviewed and is really nice, actually. So, and thank you to Helena for that piece. Very stimulating.
Great. No, thank you indeed, Helena. Well, and gentlemen and dear audience, this brings an end to this Open Source episode 17. If you'd like to join us in our next one, we'd love to have you on board. You never know. We just wished, Warren Buffett a 90th happy birthday. He may want to join the next episode. We'll reach out to him. You never know. So do put a message in the comments or send us a direct message. But we'd love to have you on the show. But for now, wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.